You think you're a good cat parent, you buy the premium food, you have 3 different types of brushes, you've rearranged your entire bedroom so the cat gets the warm side of the bed. But there's a difference between loving your cat and accidentally breaking them. And the line between those two things is thinner than most vets will admit to your face. Today we're looking at 9 signs that your cat isn't just loved, they're spoiled, and not in the cute way, in the way that's quietly rewiring their behavior, their stress responses, and their ability to cope when you're not in the room. Stay with me through sign number 6. Because that's the one that makes people put down their phones and actually think. Here's the thing about spoiled cats that nobody talks about. Spoiling a child is obvious. There are tantrums, there are demands, there are consequences you can see happening in real time. But cats are quiet about it. They don't throw fits in grocery stores. They don't cry about screen time. What they do is subtler. They stop eating food that isn't warm enough. They sit beside the empty bowl and stare at you instead of eating what's there. They scream at 3 a.m. not because they're hungry, but because they've learned that screaming works. Dr. John Bradshaw, one of the world's leading cat behaviorists and author of Cat Sense, spent years studying why domestic cats behave so differently from their wild counterparts. What he found was uncomfortable. The modern house cat exists in a kind of permanent developmental limbo. We've inadvertently kept them in a juvenile state, dependent, demanding, and in some cases, genuinely anxious when that dependence isn't met. Spoiling, it turns out, isn't just indulgence. It's the slow erosion of a cat's ability to self-regulate. But here's the question nobody's asking yet. How do you know if you've crossed that line? Sign 1. The food negotiation Luna is a 7-year-old tortoiseshell in Portland. Her owner, a woman named Rachel, noticed something strange happening around dinner time. Luna would walk to her bowl, sniff the food, the same food she'd eaten for 3 years, and then look directly at Rachel and walk away, not because she was sick. The vet confirmed it. Luna had simply decided that the food was beneath her unless it was served warmed to exactly the right temperature, in a ceramic bowl, not the plastic one. This is what researchers call learned food aversion through social reinforcement. In plain language, your cat figured out that rejecting food gets a reaction, and that reaction eventually produces something better. A 2019 study from the University of Edinburgh found that cats are remarkably effective at reading human emotional responses and adjusting their behavior accordingly. Luna didn't start picky. She was trained into it by someone who loved her very much. If your cat regularly rejects food and then watches you, ears slightly forward, pupils normal, tail low, but still, they're not sick, they're negotiating. And somewhere along the way, you taught them that negotiation works. But food is the obvious one. The signs that should actually concern you. They're quieter, SIGN 2, furniture ownership, inversion. This one sounds harmless, maybe even charming. Your cat has a designated chair. Everyone in the house knows it's the cat's chair. You don't sit there. Guests are warned. You've moved the chair slightly so it catches the afternoon light, because that's what they prefer. Here's the thing about that. In a healthy cat-human household, the human sets the spatial boundaries. Not through punishment, but through consistency and confidence. When those boundaries fully invert, when you are navigating around your cat's territorial claims rather than the other way around, something shifts in how your cat reads the household hierarchy. Milo, a 4-year-old Maine Coon in Austin, began blocking doorways, just sitting in them. Not aggressively, but persistently. His owner had to step over or around him dozens of times a day. When they tried to gently move him, Milo would return within minutes. A feline behaviorist identified it immediately. Milo had claimed the choke points of the home. He wasn't being aggressive. He was being territorial in the way cats are when they feel no one else is setting limits. It's not dominance in a Hollywood sense. It's something more interesting and more revealing about how your cat perceives their own status in the space you share. Sign 3. The attention. Tax, you're on a call. The cat sits on your keyboard. You move the cat. The cat returns. You move the cat again with one hand while typing with the other. The cat begins to chew on your pen. You laugh. Maybe you post a video of it. What you've just done, without meaning to, is confirm that interruption is a viable strategy for getting your attention. Oregon State University's Human-Animal Interaction Lab has studied this pattern extensively. What they found is that cats who receive attention as a response to disruptive behavior become progressively more disruptive. Not because they're malicious, but because the feedback loop is completely clear to them. Interrupt, receive, human. It works every time. Shadow, a 2-year-old black cat in Seattle, began sitting directly on her owner's face at 5 a.m. It started as one incident. Within 6 weeks, it was daily. The owner, a light sleeper, a cat lover, someone who genuinely didn't want to upset the cat, had, on that first night, laughed and given Shadow chin scratches. That was the moment. One response. 6 weeks of 5 a.m. face-sitting. How many attention loops are running in your house right now that you've already forgotten starting? Here's where it gets strange. Because signs 4 and 5 aren't about what your cat does when they want something. They're about what your cat does when they don't get it. Sign 4, protest, vocalization, escalation. Cats are not naturally vocal with each other. Adult cats in the wild communicate through scent, body language, and occasional hissing or growling during conflict. The meow, the conversational, persistent, directed, at you meow, is a behavior that evolved almost exclusively for communicating with humans, which means every time your cat meows at you and you respond, you are participating in an ongoing behavioral negotiation that they are almost certainly winning. The sign of spoiling isn't that your cat meows. It's the escalation pattern. Does one meow get ignored and a louder one immediately follow? Does your cat meow at a specific pitch when you're in the kitchen specifically? Have you found yourself unconsciously learning what different meows mean and responding to each one differently? A 2022 study out of Stockholm University, one of the most detailed analyses of cat-human vocal communication ever conducted, found that cats living with a single owner for more than 2 years develop individualized vocal patterns that their specific owner can decode, but strangers cannot. Your cat has essentially built a private language with you. That's remarkable. That's also a system they are continuously refining to get better results. If the meowing is getting louder, more frequent, or more specific over time, that's not your cat becoming more communicative. That's your cat optimizing SIGN 5. The sulk, you went away for a weekend. You came back. Your cat ignored you for 2 days. Everyone who's experienced this reads it as punishment. And it feels that way. But what's actually happening is more complicated and more revealing about the dependency you've built. Cats are not pack animals. They are not wired for the kind of social grief that dogs experience during separation. But spoiled cats, cats who have become genuinely dependent on a specific human for emotional regulation, do show disrupted behavior after separation, not grief in the human sense, something more like disorientation. The sulk is actually the tail end of a mild stress response. The cat's baseline behavior was disrupted. They couldn't self-soothe, and when you returned, they needed time to re-regulate before re-engaging. Here's the uncomfortable truth. A truly confident, well-adjusted cat doesn't sulk when you come home from a trip. They greet you, or they don't, and they move on. The dramatic, silent treatment? That's a cat who has become too attached to your presence for emotional stability. And if you've ever felt guilty, if you've ever rushed home, given extra treats, slept with the cat on your chest for 3 nights to make it up to them, you've now reinforced the behavior for next time. Now forget everything I just said about behavior, because sign 6 is where the physical signs start appearing. And this one is the one vets see constantly, and almost never trace back to the right cause, SIGN 6, food-triggered physiological anxiety. This is the one. Spoiled cats, particularly cats who have been hand-fed who have had meals prepared to specific temperature or texture preferences, or who have successfully negotiated their diet over time, show something unexpected when that routine is disrupted, not hunger, anxiety. Researchers at the Waltham Pet Care Science Institute documented a pattern in cats with highly ritualized feeding routines. When the routine was altered, even slightly, even with equivalent nutrition, the cats showed measurable cortisol elevation, stress hormone. Not because they were hungry. Because the predictability had been removed, your cat isn't just eating food. In a spoiled household, the feeding ritual has become an emotional anchor. The specific bowl, the specific time, your presence in the kitchen, the sound of the particular food container, all of it has become a package. Disrupt any piece of that package, and you've triggered a stress response in an animal that has no way of understanding why they feel wrong. This is why some cats vomit from stress when you switch foods. Why some cats stop eating entirely for days when you change feeding times due to a schedule shift. It's not stubbornness, it's anxiety. Anxiety that, with the best intentions in the world, you built. Sign 7. Play Rifusala. Spoiled cat often stops playing, not because they're old, not because they're sick, because they've learned that waiting produces better outcomes than engaging. In a home where the cat is deeply indulged, play has often been replaced by a kind of ambient entertainment on demand. You wiggle the toy when the cat glances at it. You stop when they walk away. You try again in 10 minutes because you feel bad they're bored. What you're inadvertently doing is removing all the challenge from play. And cats, like most predators, are neurologically wired for challenge. The satisfaction of play is in the hunt, not the catch. Remove the uncertainty, and you've removed the neurological payoff. A bored, spoiled cat doesn't play more. They play less, and they look increasingly uninterested in the world around them. This is one of the earliest signs vets notice, but rarely vocalize. Because your cat is spoiled is not a comfortable conversation to have. Sign 8, grooming escalation or cessation. This one runs in two directions, and both are telling. Some spoiled cats groom more than they should, to the point of barbering, where patches of fur become sparse from overlicking. This is almost always anxiety-based, and in overindulged cats, it often emerges during any disruption to routine. Other spoiled cats groom less, specifically in households where owners groom them manually so frequently that the cat has partially outsourced the behavior. Feline self-grooming isn't just hygiene. It's a self-soothing mechanism. If a cat learns to wait for you to brush them, to clean around their face, to handle the tangles, they may partially lose the impulse to self-maintain. Neither direction is dramatic on its own, but watch the pattern. Watch what triggers a change in grooming behavior. If the answer is consistently your absence, a change in routine, or a new person in the house, you're looking at a cat whose emotional regulation is more dependent on you than is healthy for them. Sign 9. The threshold effect. This is the most subtle sign. And also, in some ways, the most important. A well-adjusted cat has a threshold, a level of frustration or discomfort they can tolerate before their behavior changes. They can be brushed even when they'd rather not be. They can wait for food even when they're hungry. They can share space with a visitor even if they're wary. A spoiled cat's threshold drops over time, not because they become mean, because they've never been gently required to tolerate discomfort. Because every time they communicated, "I don't want this," someone listened immediately. Patience, in a cat, is not a fixed trait. It's built through experience. And when every preference is honored, every protest answered, every discomfort instantly resolved, the muscle that tolerates frustration never develops. You'll see it in small moments. The hiss when you pick them up unexpectedly, even though they normally love being held. The swat when you stop petting too soon. The 5-second window between happy and done that seems to shrink every year. It's not aggression, it's a cat who has slowly lost their tolerance for the unexpected. Here's what I want you to hold on to. Every single thing on this list came from love. There's no version of this where you were being cruel or careless. You responded to your cat. You learned what they needed. You tried to give it to them. That impulse, that attentiveness, is exactly what makes you a good cat parent. But cats aren't small humans. They don't experience being deeply accommodated the way we might hope they do. What feels like security to us can feel like instability to them, because a cat, without any friction in their world, is a cat who has never learned to navigate the unexpected. The goal was never to give your cat everything they want. The goal, the one that actually makes them happy, is to give them a world that feels safe enough to be uncertain in. Luna is still in Portland. Rachel changed the food bowl situation, gradually, without drama. Luna took 4 days to adjust. Then she ate normally. Then she stopped negotiating. And on the 5th day, she climbed into Rachel's lap without being invited, not because she was hungry, not because she wanted something, just because she felt like it. That's the cat you're trying to reach. Speaking of things cats do that we completely misread, next time we're going into territory that surprises almost everyone. Because what your cat does right before they bite you, it's not aggression. It's something far more interesting. And once you understand it, you'll never misread that moment again.